Welcome to the Board of Health meeting on Wednesday, January 24th at 4 o'clock. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. This meeting is to be conducted via remote means and in person, as long as members of the public can easily access the proceedings in real time and participate remotely. Until further notice, this meeting will no longer be broadcast live, but it may be watched when the show is replayed on packtv.org. Members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner: in person at the Rook Walk Meeting Room located on the second floor at Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street, Plymouth, Mass. Please note that the occupancy limit of the room may reduce the number of attendees that can be accommodated. By remote, just click on the agenda link that you will see on our agenda. And you'll be admitted. You may also send any comment or question that pertains to a current agenda item to publichealth@plymouth-ma.gov. They'll be read on the air and answered by the Board of Health as practicable. If time doesn't permit answers during the meeting, responses will be sent by email as soon as possible. So ordinarily, we would now go ahead with minutes from December 13th and January 10th, but that wasn't posted on the agenda. Oh, Lord. Because I didn't know what was ready, because I just got a voicemail message from Karen. So I don't think we can vote on the minutes since it's not on the agenda unless we can do it under new and old business.
I would just reserve it for the next meeting and vote them all.
Okay, so we will skip that. And go on with the grease trap variance request from Top Notch Nutrition. Is someone here to do that?
Lindsay is actually online. I just want to make sure, can everybody hear us? Because sometimes we have audio troubles. Everyone can hear us? I see head nods. Okay, great. Thank you. So, yes, Lindsay from Top Notch Nutrition is with us. Karen has the information for the grease trap variance that's being requested.
So, Top Notch Nutrition is requesting a grease trap variance. They are going to have a kiosk inside of a gym. So it's not even like a freestanding store or anything. It's a little kiosk inside the gym. They do not have items that include oil, grease, shortening lard, meat, sauces, butter, dairy, or baked goods. They do make shakes with ice water and plant protein. Couple of things to consider. They're will put any shake leftovers from the blender into trash prior to washing. Their 3-bay sink is so small that it actually is exempt from plumbing code. So there's no plumbing code requirement for a grease trap either. So they're asking for the board's approval to also waive our requirement to have a grease trap at this kiosk location. And I think Lindsay's here if you have any questions for her.
Lindsay's online, I guess?
Yes.
We have questions? Okay, does the department have a recommendation?
Oh, she just raised her hand.
Yeah, I think she wants to say something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, I just wanted to show that I was here.
Hello.
The department has had many conversations with Lindsay and also with the plumbing inspector for the town of Plymouth. And at this point in time, we're comfortable moving forward with granting her a variance approval.
Okay. Do board members have any questions? David? Let's see. Lorenzo and Amy? Any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thanks.
I don't have any questions either. I feel like if the board is determined that there really that it doesn't meet the plumbing code for a grease trap and what's being produced isn't going to create any grease, then I trust the board I trust the health department recommendation on this one.
And my only concern is that if something changes, like the menu items change and something would produce grease, or they change the sink dimensions, then we'd have to, we would go through the process again.
Absolutely, and then we would also be able to check that when we do their inspections.
Okay.
So we'd be able to follow up on that as well.
So I think the approval of the variance request has to be conditional.
Sure. You can make it that.
On the fact that if you change the menu items and anything contains any amount of fat or grease that might be going into the waste disposal, or if you for some reason change the 3 sinks in terms of their size and capacity, this variance approval would no longer apply and you'd have to reapply. Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay,
understood.
I'll make that motion.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Reed seconds the motion. I will call the roll. Amy,
Yes.
Lorenzo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Dr. Reed, yes, myself, yes, it's unanimous. That was quick and easy. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item of business is a horse stable license request at 46 Doughton Road. And I assume is Mattel commit now?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm good.
okay.
Our,
Would you like to present your request to the board, please?
so basically, I want a stable on Dalton Road,
Sorry,
Up to 6
would you mind coming up to the
Yeah.
table so the camera can pick you up?
so I want to have a stable up to 6 horses, it's, basically I want board horses and keep the community and everything. That's basically it.
So let me just jump in if I could for a second, through the chair. This is not a variance request. There's no variance requested here. This is just a hearing under our regulations for horses. If they want to have more than one horse at a location, they come before the board so that their abutters have a chance to be heard before the board if they have any questions or concerns. Are there any abutters here? Okay,
Okay, then you are.
would you like to come to the table? Perfect.
My name is John Andoska and my wife Carol. We purchased that land in 79 and sold it in 21 to Deary and Paul Moyer. And we met Mike and we're very much impressed with his operation and what he wants to do. And we're in favor of what they're asking to do. We just wanted to come down here and we didn't have anything else to do, so we thought.
Wow. Well, thank you very much.
We do try to provide entertainment. Thank you. Anything else?
So there's plenty of land to have, yes, because someone would say 6 horses, oh, that's a lot. He has ample land to have even more than 6 horses.
Does he have any horses right now?
2,
You have 2.
yeah,
Oh.
he's requesting
Add
up
4
to
more.
6, right?
So is it a little over 5 acres?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's an adequate plan for manure management?
Mhm. Yep.
Anything else? No?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Dr. Reed seconds the motion made by David. Call the roll. once again. I don't know. Is there any discussion? Thank you. No. Hearing none. We will go ahead and call the roll. Amy, yes or no?
Yes.
Lorenzo, yes or no?
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Myself, yes, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
approved.
Oh, easy. Big move. Thank you so much.
Okay, next on business is going to be a discussion about increasing cancer risks in younger age groups. So I will hopefully manage to share it and do a slideshow. Now try to push all these lovely pictures, everybody out of the way. So this happened because, as usual, once I recovered from jet lag, I started hunting through things online. And there was, as you'll see here, an article published by CNN, published in the early wee hours of January 17th, which caught my attention. And basically, the problem is that cancer patients are increasingly shifting from older to middle-aged individuals. And this was a study released by the American Cancer Society. So they're concerned about those younger than 50, and people younger than 50 were the only ones of these three age groups to experience increase in cancer overall between 1995 and 2020. It's recommended, and has been for a while now, that all adults start screening for colon and rectal cancer at age 45. So I don't imagine the students are aware of the screening process for this. You haven't had to have the wonderful experience yet, then. So this is usually done with a colonoscopy, but you may have seen the ads on television for these kits that you can have delivered to your home. They are non-invasive. They involve stool samples that gets mailed into a company, which then examines them for telltale signs of a cancer. So having done both, because you're supposed to go once every 5 years, once you reach a magic age. It was, I think, a happy birthday. It's your 60th birthday. I'm gonna order a colonoscopy present. So having done both, the mail-in one is not invasive, and it's much easier to go through. There's also some concern recently that insurance may no longer cover general anesthesia for that process.
Really?
Yep. And
Oh.
it rang a bell with me because when I went for my first one, I was innately curious. And I asked the doctor, said, can I be awake to watch this? Because I never get to see inside myself. And he said, and you're not going to today
Yeah, I
either.
wouldn't want that part to receive.
And he said, I don't usually get such requests, but no, we're not gonna do that. You often trust me, it would be highly unpleasant. So that's how it screens.
Barry, can I just ask though about the Cologuard, the one that you just sent in,
Yeah.
the stool sample? That is only recommended for certain people, correct? It's not
Well,
recommended for everyone.
It's generally for low-risk people, and doctors will warn you if you opt to do that, that if it comes back positive, you have to have a colonoscopy anyway. Fortunately, in my case, it didn't come back positive, so you have to watch out for things like an existing history of polyps and family history. You'll see that in a minute. But generally speaking, they're encouraging it, a lot of doctors are now, because it tends to get more people to actually be tested and screened. So here's a lovely picture of somebody's intestines. I assume the red part is supposed to be the part that is malignant. It's the most prominent cancer that seems to be getting into the younger people. But they're also having difficulty with screening tests for things like pancreas and gastric cancers, also appearing in younger ages. So some of these, there just aren't really good screening methodologies for, but there is for colon cancer. And it's strongly encouraged once you reach the tender age of, used to be 60. Now I guess it's 50, maybe 45,
Younger if you're.
but there are exceptions. So this doctor worries the rising incidence of cancer in young adults is going to grow into a rising incidence of cancer as you get older. And there's concern that as the population ages, that what is currently an increase in younger onset disease will turn into increases in mid-onset and late onset disease as well. So if the epidemiology of this is changing, this could be the beginning of a wave of increased cancers that may persist or may continue to increase over the next decades. American Cancer Society says that projections are that there will be about 2 million new cancer cases in the US this year, which kind of takes your breath away. Equivalent to 5,000 diagnoses each day, and it's projected that there'll be about 600,000 cancer deaths in the US in 2024. Scary stuff. But it's meant to encourage people to get tested. Data shows the share of colorectal cancer diagnosis among young adults younger than 55 in the US has been rising since the 1990s. Signs and symptoms include changes in bowel habits, rectal bleeding or blood in the stool, cramping or abdominal pain, weakness and fatigue, unexplained weight loss. So if you see any of those things or experience them, you probably need to see a doctor right away. If it's found early, it is not that serious. It can be treated. Some primary risk factors include family history. So if anyone knows of someone in the family that was diagnosed with colon cancer, that's a predisposition. Obesity, smoking, heavy alcohol use, diet high in red and processed meats, inflammatory bowel disease, and a personal history or family history of polyps. So sometimes when you have a colonoscopy and you wake up, because then they used to use general anesthesia, and you say, oh, I'm glad that's over with. And you said, well, all we found was nothing, you're good. All we found one polyp, which we removed during the surgery. If that happens, instead of getting tested once every 5 to 10 years, you get to have a test more frequently. And my former pre-med students who became doctors in gastroenterology said, yes, and we call that mining for gold. I said, oh, really? He said, because when they have to have colonoscopies more often, it's very profitable.
There you go.
So a report released last year by the American Cancer Society shows proportion of colorectal cancer cases among young adults younger than 55 increased by 11% in 1995 and 20% in 2019. Factors causing this to happen remains a mystery. In addition to colorectal cancer, cervical cancer also rose 1 to 2% annually among adults 30 to 44. So overall, the number of people dying from cancer in the US continues to decline, which it has been doing for quite some time. But the incidence rates, as opposed to deaths, from several types of cancer, including breast, prostate, uterine, pancreas, oropharynx, liver in women, kidney, melanoma, and colorectal and cervical cancer in young adults are rising, which is a cause for concern. There's also racial disparities in cancer incidence and deaths. People of color still face increased risks. And you notice that generally speaking, Caucasian white people, the mortality rates are lower, but if you start looking at things like black individuals, and also Native American Indians and Alaskan Natives and black and such individuals from minority groups, the cancers for liver, stomach, and kidney cancer are particularly high. So this is a health equity issue, which we're sort of familiar with, especially Karen and I, because we hear this all the time from the State Department of Public Health. So how do you solve this for those minority groups? Somehow or other, you have to encourage testing and screening. And usually most people are not too fond of being screened for this. In some cases, there's no screening. Here's a table published by the American Cancer Society of increasing incidence, and that's incidence, not deaths, for 6 of the top 10 cancers. And you can see that breast is way up there, so is prostate, lung and bronchial cancer, colon and rectal, melanoma of the skin, and to a lesser extent, some of the others. So cervical cancer declining steeply in women who are less than 30 years of age, so that's a positive thing. Here's the thing that I would hope all of our students would pay attention to, not that you're anywhere near the 30 to 39 age group yet, but someday you will be. You are too? Congratulations. So as you can see, the ones that are above the line, the 0 to 19 age group have gone up somewhat, but there's a much bigger increase in cancer incidence between 2010 and 2019 in the 30 to 39 age group. And it's actually fallen off slightly in the older age group, and in the oldest age group, it's fallen even more. So this is a problem. Here's the gastrointestinal cancers listed along the annual percent change in cancer incidence for 2010 to 2019 in people younger than 50. You could see the same thing. Basically, all cancers slight increase, but gastrointestinal up considerably, urinary up considerably, reproductive tract, breast, endocrine, which includes thyroid cancer, bone, soft tissue, and joints have all increased. Some of the others have actually dropped.
I have a question.
Sure.
So this chart here shows, so this is weighted by your overall population, because this is the percentage of each of these cancers appearing in the general population.
Yes.
An increase in that. Okay.
Yes. So it's a general population, but this is the population that's younger than 50.
Right.
Specifically, so not overall. And the last one, I think, is this. So according to Dr. Sung, Senior Principal Scientist, American Cancer Society, monitoring trends, especially among young people, is important because trends in young people reflect the newly introduced carcinogens in a given population, and that can be a bellwether for future cancer burden. We've seen this over and over and over again. Every time you turn around, something is popped up as a new cause of cancer. PFA is the one that comes to mind first. But there have been others over the years. There's a lot of chemicals out there. And many of them have been introduced more recently. And as time goes on, some of them are discovered to actually be carcinogenic. I remember the red dye, one of the red dyes was a concern some years ago. And many people were having that applied to their hair and their scalp. And then it turned out to be carcinogenic. So what happens? They remove it from, use, but it takes some time. Just like PFAs, they know it's a carcinogen. They know the cancers that it can cause, but trying to get it out of the population is a real slow process. So I just thought that we should go through that some, because when I saw it, I immediately got concerned. I'll stop the screen share there for a moment.
If I can just add a personal note, colorectal cancer is so you can prevent it.
Yes.
Based on diet and whatnot. And my brother was actually diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer at 43. So my other brother and I have been getting colonoscopy since we were 35. Every couple, I just texted them, I got my notice yesterday, I have to go every 5 years. And my son also has ulcerative colitis, so he's at a higher risk, and he has to go every 1 to 2 years. It's kind of like doing your taxes, you have to do it, and it's, if it can prevent cancer, if they can find these polyps or anything like that, it will literally save your life.
Yeah.
It's, certainly worth it. Amy has her hand raised.
And I had an experience in my family with lung cancer, but it was someone who married into the family. Came down with lung cancer, and then after he passed away, his wife, who had never smoked a cigarette in her life, came down with lung cancer. Because of the secondhand smoke that she probably inhaled for a long time. I had a college classmate whose grandfather had lung cancer. Her mother subsequently got lung cancer, and so did one of her aunts. So obviously there's a genetic component to determining your susceptibility to these kinds of cancers. Most people have heard of the BRCA genes, which almost guarantee that you will someday eventually get breast cancer if you carry one of those genes. And as you go through your classroom training, you will hear what those genes do, and why it causes cancer. But many people who find out that they have that in the family, and they get tested and they find out they're carrying one of those genes, many of them actually opt for a mastectomy. After obviously you've had children. And I believe uterine cancer is also a problem with that same gene, as is apparently prostate cancer. So if any of those run in your family, you've got to be aware prostate cancer is a little easy to screen for too. Most guys probably have been screened. It involves a PSA test, which is just a simple blood test. And it also involves something called digital rectal exam. We won't go into details.
So Margaret,
Oh, I think
Oh,
Amy.
sorry. Yeah, one thing I wanted to say, I know, I saw how drastically respiratory cancers dropped. And I just want to give us all like a little pat on the back because we all know that's from the reduction of smoking. And I would say it's directly related to the regulations that a local board of health have passed and the amount of work that local health has done. I mean, I'm not, well, I guess I am kind of old, but let's remember back when we would go to restaurants and go to work and people would be smoking cigarettes, and now it's rare, and that was that was the boots on the ground grassroots organization from local health that started that movement. So I just want to kind of give everybody a little pat on the back on that one, because that's directly related to the work that we do from a board of health perspective.
Yeah, some of us are old enough to remember when people used to smoke on planes.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a set of seats towards the back that was smoking section. And one seat in front of that and all the ones further forward were non-smoking sections.
Well, like
Well, that didn't do any
non-smoking
good.
section of the restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it being in college and in the college dining commons, there was a smoking and a non-smoking section. We were 18 and we were smoking, and people are smoking cigarettes. So I just think that the stuff that we do, it might take a while, but there is the direct correlation between that graph on respiratory cancers and the work that a local health department does.
Yes, and obviously it's a major problem still. Cancer, I believe, is at least the second leading cause of death in the US. Only below, I think, cardiac disease. So,
and while we're talking about
Yeah.
smoking, I want to also mention vaping, which can affect colorectal health as well as lung health. And the other thing is fast foods. You said you mentioned not healthy foods and fatty foods, but some people just don't think of fast foods or junk foods as not healthy necessarily, but they really can affect your GI.
The risk factors that Barry had read off in that, as I'm looking at my brother that had cancer at 43, checked off everything. Yeah, so, we kind of kid with them and like, no, thanks, Pat. Thanks for that.
Child.
We're like, all right, now we stop doing this.
anything else? Anybody have personal things they want to add? No?
The preparation for a colonoscopy is unpleasant.
Correct.
Indeed it is.
But that's now.
To me,
It
it's
is.
worse.
Well,
It's worse than.
You can get a really good nap, but before you get the nap,
Oh, you
Before
deserve
you get
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have.
I don't want to scare you off, but they used to give you like this container and it was like a gallon jug. And you get to pick your flavor, but it's extraordinarily salty stuff.
Well,
And-
that's different. isn't it?
It's different now.
It's gotten a little
It's
different.
I only had like two little,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
We have
different.
Very
magnesium
different.
citrate.
Yeah.
You used to have to down all that salty liquid within a certain period of time. And the only way you could do it is to just hold your nose and just chug it. Because the flavor didn't help much.
I think I read you can only use certain flavors now, because the dyes like methyl,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
anything with red dye.
Yeah, have red or, yeah, I think it's pretty much just red.
And you actually had to start drinking it fairly early because otherwise you wouldn't be sleeping that night. But it's gotten a little better, I think, for the most part, it's just a little better. But anyway, previews of coming attractions as you get further. But you need to be aware of that because obviously you may see that in your family. If you see it in your family, you should make sure that people get screened. Same thing for skin cancer. It's almost completely preventable.
And that is one of the pillars of public health is preventative And so there are preventative measures that everyone can take. And that, you know, including dental health too, you know what I mean? That's why it's important to go to the dentist.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You have your physicals, your medical doctor, you go to the dentist, you have your teeth, you know, so it's, all the preventative stuff is important.
and most dentists, including mine, during the exam now, the dental technician will grab a hold of your tongue with a piece of gauze and lift it up and look
Oh, yeah, look
around.
around, yeah,
That's what they're looking for.
yeah,
They're looking for oral cancer.
yeah.
And it's not that unpleasant, it's just a little weird. So, you know, those are the things to watch out for. Having just returned from Hawaii, I still saw an awful lot of older people who seem to feel that being blessed with a nice golden tan is healthy. And I'm sitting there underneath an umbrella, covered with sunblock, going, are we having fun yet? Well, I managed to read 2 entire books during the process, which is uncommon for me because they had nothing to do with public health. So the next thing to screen share with you is going to be. Oops, I got the wrong one, I guess. Let me try again. It's the same one that we just had, so it is
Yep.
that one. So what's this one about? This one is about what I've learned in the past month or so, I guess. Further about the wind turbines that have been a subject of our meetings for a long, long time now. So information that has come about because the people at RWE Corporation have actually been quite responsive, have answered questions when they're asked. And I found out a lot of stuff I didn't know by talking to them and also by talking to Keith Mann, who owns the property where the wind turbines are located. We certainly heard a lot from your group over many months and years. So this is what Future Generation Wind, which is actually now RWE, has done. And they have curtailed, and that means turned off 2 of their 4 turbines in the nighttime hours for 365 days a year. The time's a little different. Turbine 1 is closest to Morning Mist Lane. It is turned off from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day, 7 days a week. Turbine 5, which is on the other side, I believe, of Highway 25, is turned off from midnight until 5 a.m. They have been doing that. In response to my question, they said they've been doing that since sometime in 2020. So that's been going on for a number of years. The reason they did it is because they recognized that it was causing the noise from these turbines was causing sleep disturbances. And especially turbines that are closest to residences. And so their proximity sort of guidelines are that anything measuring 0.5 miles or less from a turbine is probably an issue with noise. Then you get into the discussion about, well, can we prove that the noise actually physically causes other health issues? And if you look at the studies that have been done, the acoustic studies, which I know there's issues with, the acoustic studies concluded that yes, having these turbines within a half a mile does cause a lot of stress. And can cause, in addition to that, a lot of annoyance. And that is the reason why they actually voluntarily, without being induced by anybody that I know of, decided that they would turn off these 2 turbines out of the 4 that actually exist. Apparently number 2 and 3 exist, but number 4 doesn't for some reason. The other 2 turbines that are not turned off apparently are more distant from the residences. So the reason why it got difficult to convince them to do turn-offs during weekends, at least during the summer months, which I asked them to do, was that they have found that they're in a financial squeeze and what they have already done has significantly reduced revenues from their energy sales to energy companies like Eversource. And they have contract specifications about how much of the energy they must sell according to their contract to these energy supply companies. So when I asked them to turn it off further, the guy I talked to actually went to the board of directors and they discussed it. And they said that we can't easily do that without violating the terms of our contracts. And so it didn't go very far, but they did discuss it, and the guy I talked to said, I wish the answer was different. But that's was the answer. They also curtail, which means turn off the turbines anytime the wind speeds exceed 25 meters per second. I looked at that and I said, well, what is that? So what that is any wind speed that's above 56 miles per hour, which I don't know how often it occurs down there. But in discussions with the individual from RWE, he said the turbines stay offline until average wind speeds over a 10-minute period drop below that number, and then they turn them back on. So it's just something that happens on rare occasions, I guess, when the wind speeds get very, very high. He did admit that they knew that higher wind speeds do produce more noise. And so, again, I said, well, can you reduce the wind speed from 56 miles per hour to some lower speed, which would be the curtailment point? And they apparently went to their board of directors and discussed that and didn't go anywhere. Future Generation Wind, a long time ago, had established an escrow fund to be used for claims for residents in Plymouth. But as I understood it, was only for Plymouth residents, not for Bourne residents. So they did discuss, and they apparently agreed to refund that escrow account to support residents' concerns and to help with mitigation strategies like soundproofing and lightproofing. And they wanted it administered through an account for claims that would be handled by Plymouth. Apparently this had happened previously with Plymouth residents, at least some of them, who took advantage of it and installed some lightproofing and soundproofing. And there was a whole process that everyone went through, and there was more priority given to those that lived closest to the wind turbines. Unfortunately, there was not much interest other than removing the turbines altogether by the group of people that live in the vicinity of the turbines. Additionally, with curtailment restrictions already in place, it seemed clear that there was no compromise solutions that will work despite the conversation and discussions and going back and forth with their board of directors and the gentleman I talked to at RWE, and the information I tried to communicate to you directly. So we get down to how close are these turbines to the neighbors? I asked them for the numbers. And they told me that using, I guess, satellite imaging, the closest house in a straight line distance to turbine number 1 is 1,340 feet, which is about a quarter of a mile. And this is Richard and Kathleen Turgeon's house. That's the closest one, according to them. Distance to Karen McMahon's house is 1,840 feet, which is about 0.35 miles. On the north side, the closest house is 1,528 feet, which is 0.2 miles from the turbine. So the bottom line for us is this should have never happened. Probably the permit to build these things in response to the request from, at the time, Future Generation Wind, there should have been a minimum distance applied, which had to be at least half a mile and preferably a mile, according to all the literature that I've seen for quite some time. And yet they built them too close to the homes. I think they realized they did, but they were within compliance with the rules and regulations that were passed by the Plymouth Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals used a distance that was literally designed to prevent harm if any of the wind turbines fell over. So they were about twice the distance of the height of the turbines. And all of these distances apparently conform to the zoning board of appeals permit requirements. So there wasn't much else that could be done. I tried and tried and tried. I spent a lot of time on the phone with people at the company. And we've been doing this since 2020, after the people who live there moved their efforts from the Bourne officials to the Plymouth officials. And I think everyone would admit that we have gone further than anyone else that was ever asked to do anything about this problem than anybody else, but we have encountered this. I thought we were gonna get further with the weekend sort of mitigation and turning off the same two turbines, at least for weekends during the summertime, so people could enjoy their properties better. But then all of a sudden, as this guy was about to put it before the board of directors, there was reported gunshot damage to turbine number 5 caused by copper-colored bullets. It was discovered by Keith Mann, the property owner. It apparently occurred on the 10th of October last year. It was reported to the Plymouth police. It was categorized by them as a felony offense. They found 35 to 40 bullet holes, but it didn't fully penetrate the towers. It instead caused damage to the surface, which started to rust. The police went and they found numerous dirt bike tracks and footprints about 150 yards away from the turbines. The suspect or suspects are unknown at the time of the report, but they did report that there is a lot of hunting allowed in that area by the property owner. And because of the bike tracks and the footprints close to the turbine, they speculated that it might well be one of the hunters or someone just doing target practice in the area that used the turbines as their target. This caused rusting, and it caused a considerable expense to the company who has to repair it to prevent the rust from getting worse. So they estimated they were spending about $100,000 repairing the turbine bullet damage. And that was exactly the amount that they're willing to put into the escrow account. So needless to say, the board of directors were not very receptive any longer to my pleas, suggestions, requests. So bottom line, and this is pictures of some of the turbine damage, which I think I showed before on the towers.
I've never heard of this. I had never heard about that.
Yeah, well, I actually got the police report from the Plymouth Police by way of the RWE company guy that I was talking to. So at this point, and in accordance with the written opinion of the Plymouth Town Council, which kind of caught us by surprise, it seems there's nothing more we can do but to confirm that according to the Plymouth Board of Health, June 28th, 2023 motion, passed by a vote of 4 in favor and 1 opposed, the declaration of public nuisance is rescinded since there has been negotiations concerning additional mitigation measures to provide relief from the wind turbine noise. Any additional acoustic noise studies seem to be the responsibility of the Massachusetts DEP. Plymouth Board of Health can offer to join with the Bourne Board of Health to make such a request for an additional study. It is their responsibility because it involves residents of both towns. I rather doubt that Bourne officials, given the minutes that I read from previous meetings with your group, would want to even get involved in it anymore. And even if they would join us in making that request, the Mass DEP might not be willing to fund any such additional studies since there was a previous study which was the subject of a lot of criticism in terms of how it was designed and performed by the group of residents. But they did conclude that there was no evidence of health damage to the people except for annoyance and possible resulting stress. So at this point, I'm going to ask David, who researched what we did on June 28th very thoroughly, to read the resolution or the motion that was originally passed 4-1, and then an amended motion that will accompany the next action.
So I have 2 motions that I'd like to read in their original format and a clarification for each of them. So at 4:54 PM, under the wind turbine complaint, discussion and vote on possible further BOH action. It was noted that a motion to rescind the declaration of nuisance was made by David Golden and seconded by Terry Reed. Vote through roll call 4/1. That seems to indicate that it passed rather than failed. So my clarification for that motion would be a motion to rescind the declaration of nuisance was made by David Golden and seconded by Terry Reed. Vote through roll call 1/4, motion fails. The second motion originally read, a motion that the Board of Health will conditionally rescind the declaration of nuisance, provided that Mr. Dixon or his representative negotiate with the board to find a mitigation strategy that will be acceptable to all parties concerned, was made by David Golden and seconded by Terry Reed. Vote through roll call 4/1. The clarification that I would add to this would be David Golden clarified prior to making a further motion that them, in brackets, that would be Con Edison / Mr. Dixon, agreeing to come to the table to negotiate results in a rescission of the nuisance order. And if the outcome is not mutually agreeable, we will then need to vote on another nuisance order if we want to take further action. And that was in quotation, so that's a direct quote from the meeting. Further, a motion that the Board of Health will conditionally rescind the declaration of nuisance, provided that Mr. Dixon or his representative make a good faith effort to negotiate with the board to find a mitigation strategy will be acceptable to all parties, that will be acceptable to all parties concerned, was made by David Golden and seconded by Terry Reed. Vote through roll call 4/1, motion passes. So I would make a motion tonight that we amend our meeting minutes from June the 28th of 2023 to reflect the two amended motions that I just described.
And the correction on the vote,
Yes, and the correction of the vote.
because the vote was misstated in the minutes.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? This is only about changing the minutes and slightly altering the motion, right? Correct. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, I will call the roll again. Amy, yes or no?
Yes.
Lorenzo, yes or no?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Dr. Reed? Myself, yes. Motion passes by unanimous vote of 5-0. So here we are, after much effort, many years, a lot of pain and suffering and annoyance on the part of the people who live there. There's basically nothing further that the Plymouth Board of Health is able to do to provide additional relief from the disturbances. I think we all understand how annoying that is and how much you've suffered from it. And we wish we could do more, but we simply don't have the ability to do it. Given the written opinion of our Plymouth Town Council, who felt that any such further action would fail in the courts, and informed us that should we attempt to bring that to a court action, that the town council would not support it. So we are stuck. We tried our best, and if anyone, I put aside enough time, I thought, so that anybody who wished to make a statement could do so from among the public.
I would like to make a statement.
Would you mind coming up to the
Come
table?
to
so
the
that-
table and identify yourself, please.
Yeah, I'll pick you up, so just stand there.
You can stand or sit.
So I'm Karen McMahon from Buzzards Bay, and we've been doing this dance for a long time together, and I appreciate the energy that you put into getting the information that you presented today. I can clarify that part of, I would say the entire reason that those turbines get shut off for any time during the night is because in order to meet the requirements of the zoning board of appeals permit, they had to do sound testing because there were so many complaints. It took them over a year to do that sound testing, and we had to endure those turbines, and they could not meet their own criteria, and therefore they shut them off. But like you said, they're doing that voluntarily. There's no place that says they have to do that. We appreciate that they've done that. But the reason they did it is because they could not meet their own sound measurements by keeping them on, so they shut them off. That doesn't mean that they're not just as bad, if not worse, during the day. They're horrible. And as my letter stated that I sent you, and I hope the board was able to read it, we had the misfortune of being home. We've been home for several months now, and it's miserable. And it's miserable to be home in your house, not able to participate in activities elsewhere and feel trapped by what's happening. So I agree to a point that your hands are somewhat tied. It is not my issue or my problem that there was damage to a turbine, and now there's not even gonna be a conversation with what might be able to happen at my house with some kind of mitigation fund. You know, perhaps soundproof windows would work. I spent a year, I now understand, with Mark Noyes, who was the CEO of Eversource Renewable Energy, because they were making a deal with whatever this RDW company is to merge. And so he kept me quiet for a year. And I remember telling you online at one of the meetings, my turbine's been off for a few months. He shut it off, managed to do that, to shut me up long enough so they could make their deal. And now here we sit. So I know where you're going with this. Your hands are tied, illegally tied by your town council. That's inappropriate. You have police powers beyond them. And just because they have a permit does not mean that we can't shut them down. But you're the one with the power to do that. The only way we will ever find out if the court would agree with us is to get there. And the only way to get there is for you to shut them off. That's why our neighborhood said we want them off. But nobody ever sent me a note or called me to say, hey, we're negotiating. This is how much money there is. Can that do anything for your house? It still screws us up for an outdoor life, but maybe we could have an indoor life. It was miserable to be home all this time and struggle through those turbines every single day. And the fact that 2 of them are off at night, that's glorious. That doesn't mean we don't hear the others, but they're only off because they couldn't meet their own criteria. And their criteria, if you ever go through all the sound, scientific information behind it, they're only recording, they're only documenting seconds out of hours and hours of testing. Milliseconds, there's probably 1.5 second increments that they take out of the hours and hours of testing. And that's what they document on their paperwork that they send in and say, yeah, we met the criteria. The other issue is, I actually went to call the police the other day because the noise was tremendous and I wanted it documented. But Bourne had already told me, don't call us, they're not in Bourne, and Plymouth won't respond. So there is no support for this. Who do we call? Who's checking? The building inspector is supposed to be monitoring their compliance with the permit. Who monitors it? I send letters, no one ever goes out and says, oh yeah, you know, we can see, we have somebody come out and check the noise level. And it's beyond what the permit allows. Nobody in the town of Plymouth has ever done that. You have done the most work, I do thank you, than anybody ever has. But you said it yourself, these never should have been built this close to our homes. It never should have happened. Turbine number 4 doesn't exist because there's a neighborhood like ours that happens to be legally in the town of Plymouth that wasn't even as close as we are to the other turbine, but we don't live in Plymouth, so we didn't have a voice. So that turbine number 4 doesn't exist. They rescinded the permit application so they could get the other 4 permitted. So all of this sounds great, but it's not as great as it sounds in reality, because we are still in the same boat, and you want to vote to rescind the nuisance, but the nuisance hasn't changed. And if anything, it was worse. The past few months have been horrible, and maybe it's always like that, but I've been home. And it's inappropriate. It's inappropriate that they asked us to tolerate it. It's inappropriate that there was $100,000 option on the table. And now it's off the table because somebody damaged a turbine. And as far as your PFAS that you're very interested in, turbine blades are coated with PFAS. So welcome to clean energy. It's not as clean as they say. Green energy in this case is not as clean as it's supposed to be. Because if you can destroy people's lives, I went through looking for soundproof windows, getting prices from 4 different companies. All of this for Mr. Noyes, the CEO, because he was gonna help us. All of this just to keep me moving while I worked and took care of my family so that I could be quiet while they merged. And that is shameful. And I'm embarrassed to say this publicly because I was stupid to fall for it. But he was just lovely. And as soon as that deal happened, I know what they mean when they say ghosted me, because he ghosted me. Never, ever was able to connect with him again. That's horrible. That's horrible. And shame on the board of directors of that company for supporting this type of behavior in the community. And as far as how many people they need to sell their energy to, that was also an agreement that was made with the Plymouth Zoning Board of Appeals. They couldn't get their permit until they could prove that there was an audience for their turbines. They had to have consumers. And then, of course, the government said, oh, municipalities need to have green energy. So now that means there has to be green energy. And we pay the price because now we are at the bottom of that hill that it's all rolling down. I hear what you're saying. Your town council is not, he's doing his job to protect the town. I get it. That's his job. He's doing it very well. Your job's to protect us. And we have nobody. We have DEP. We've already been through this with the DEP. We went to everybody. And it all rolled downhill to you because you're the Board of Health in the town of Plymouth. And this is a miserable subject that had to be broached. And still here we are. And do you think I can get what I should get for our home so we could leave it parked next to that turbine? Probably not. I can't replace that home. I can't replace that property. Here we are. It's my husband's retirement home. He's lived there a long time. He loved it. And I get up in the morning and take the dog out and I want to scream every time. And that's no way to live in your home. No way. And it's a lovely house. So I am very disappointed that here we are. And this is why we all said we wanted them off, because what can we do? Maybe soundproof windows, maybe, but there has to be money for it. I don't have it. I work hard. My husband works hard. We don't have it. We would have probably sued by now. We can't afford to do that, or we'll never be able to retire ever. And even then, it's, who knows, maybe we won't. But it's a shame. It is a shame that we can't have Bourne involved. I understand why they don't want to touch it, but the bottom line is, the court said, this is in Plymouth. And I don't know, you know what, if you could see that babies were turning purple because they lived next to the turbines, you would shut them off. But what happens to us, you can't see. And so you don't shut them off. But that is the only way. That is why the neighborhood said, that's the intervention we want. Because until we can get to court and be heard by someone who has the authority to manage the situation, I guess, we have no strength. We have Con Edison or whoever they are now, they're not compelled on any level to help us because they're not losing anything by not. They just say no.
But I didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted to let you talk as much as you wished. But I have some clarification issues that I would like to understand. True or false, the Bourne Board of Health went through this same sort of thing with you. And they actually went to court to try to get the turbines removed. And they were told that they had no standing before the court because the turbines were in Plymouth, correct?
No. False. They were told that they had no standing because the turbines had not been built and running yet. So until they had become a nuisance, they had no standing. And then town council got involved and he manipulated the, whomever they were, manipulated the interpretation of the meeting to state that they never voted on the nuisance. So they went to court because they were sued. And when they got to court, they requested an injunction, which is what we wanted. And we, the neighbors, we were obviously didn't make the right choice because the injunction should have been requested through Plymouth, not Bourne. And by then, we couldn't afford to go on any further.
Yeah, my understanding was that Bourne actually had a wind turbine, bylaw,
Yes, they
right?
did,
Which Plymouth does not.
right.
And that in order to get the injunction approved, Bourne could not apply their bylaw to structures which exist in Plymouth.
Correct.
And that's why it didn't succeed. But I noticed that there was also a statement made by the judge in that case that should Bourne actually declare a public nuisance, they could come back to the court and to file a complaint, to see if any kind of remediation could be ordered by the courts. And as I understood it from looking at the minutes, that didn't happen.
No. And you can understand why,
Yes.
because it's the same situation as here. And I am I'm angry, and I'm not angry at anybody personally, but I am angry that this situation exists. I appreciate the work that you've done. It is the work that the Board of Health is here to do, but I also recognize that you didn't have to allow us to participate. You have that right, and you did, and I appreciate that. And I just think that relinquishing the nuisance is the wrong thing to do. Keeping the nuisance with the explanation that your hands are tied, which is illegal, but I get it. If you don't have the finances to have the support to go to court, what are you supposed to do? They'll just change the board. But I think nothing has changed. When this was voted to be acknowledged to be a nuisance by vote, it was a nuisance and nothing has changed. It is not better. So to determine now that it no longer exists is wrong. I think that it's better to linger as a nuisance than to now say, oh, no, it's not, because that's not true. It is.
Well, just to give some more background, I was the Board of Health member who made the motion to declare the public nuisance. Me and culpa, that was me. I take full responsibility for that. However, the vote was 5-0 in favor. The reason why that motion was made was to try to encourage discussion about mitigation measures. That was why the motion was made. And in fact, that happened, although not without a very long, many-year struggle, because Mr. Dixon refused to negotiate unless there was first a rescission of the declaration of nuisance. So,
Because that declaration is powerful. It is extremely powerful. And to relinquish that
no.
will be a very bad thing to do. It's very bad.
The reason why we were told we have to is because once you make a declaration of public nuisance according to the state law and guidelines, you must either take action to remove the nuisance or destroy it, or you have to rescind the declaration of nuisance. There are no other options.
And it appears to me that you would have taken action to remove it if town council weren't protecting the town and telling you not to. Because that is the right thing to do. Legally and morally, it's the right thing to do. And let the court decide.
I don't think we can comment on that.
Well, based on the way the regulations are written and expectations of boards of health, that's exactly what you just said. You're supposed to remove it. So the nuisance has not been removed, it's still there. But your hands are tied And until they're asked to shut down, and I tell you that Con Edison will show up in court immediately if that happens, because that's a problem for them. Until they're ordered to shut them down, we won't ever have mitigation, because they don't need to.
Well, I can tell you that the gentleman I was talking to who works for RWE initially stated that he felt that there was going to be $100,000 made available for the replenishment of the mitigation escrow fund. Where we ran into trouble with that was there was a much bigger meeting with a lot more of your residents, and there were some very negative comments made. And also, we found out that Plymouth wanted no role in supervising or overseeing the mitigation fund.
Isn't that a shame?
So,
I have point of order, Barry.
okay,
I would ask that, the public refrain from speaking unless recognized by the chair.
okay. Well, we're having a discussion only with one person at the moment.
Right, but it's not.
And she was recognized.
It's
by the
not a
chair.
discussion. You are speaking as the chair. She should not interrupt you.
Okay,
Interested.
We should also see if other people are online. Is anyone raising their hand online? No,
is there any hands?
because there are some people up there. I just wanted to make sure.
No hands raised.
Okay,
There's one more person who wishes to speak. We do have a little more time, I think, for this. Not much, because it's already 5:05. Please keep your comments brief if you can.
Well, I've enjoyed watching quite a few Board of Health meetings over the last few months, and I will say the Grandmothers Against Gun Violence was allotted 40 minutes and ended up with an hour and 15 minutes. So it's just a little disturbing to me. Whenever this topic comes up, there's always sort of this squeeze on time, which is unfortunate.
I'm gonna stop right there because we've been helping and working with this for years. Tonight, we're
That's right.
asking for the time to be limited. So this is just one instance out of many, many meetings where we have allocated hours for public comment and for discussion.
I've attended, or either virtually or in person,
Okay,
all of the meetings.
so you know that then,
The gun violence presentation
I
is a
know, but-
one-time thing.
right? That was
Okay.
the first, only time they were here.
No, I've been following this quite along, and my name's Joanne Levesque, and, I'm a Duxbury resident. I'm a member of the Buzzards Bay Citizens Action Committee. I've been involved with the neighbors for years. I've worked cooperatively with the Kingston Board of Health, the Situate Board of Health, Falmouth neighbors. I'm very well in tune on this whole topic, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer, because what's happened at different Board of Healths in different towns is interesting, because everyone's doing something a little differently. And as Karen said, this is nothing personal, but I find the suggestion today to rescind the nuisance is a dark day for the Plymouth Board of Health.
May I clarify that?
Yes,
The rescission of the public health nuisance was based upon the motion made on the 28th of June.
okay,
It is not something that requires any further votes. It is rescinded.
okay, unless someone makes a motion
To reconsider it, yes.
yes, okay, so that could happen. Couple things. First of all, you made mention, it seems to me, just as a general comment, that the Plymouth Board of Health is being very deferential to the owner of this project, which now is a foreign company, German company. So one line of thinking is that we have a German company that is harassing and causing a public health nuisance to neighbors in both Plymouth and Bourne. The deferential part is, I'm gonna give one example. You said, Mr. Barry, that, they have an obligation to their people who are power purchasing. Now, I live in Duxbury. Keith Mann came before the Duxbury Board of Selectmen and asked them to sign a power purchase agreement so that he could trigger the construction of his project. As Karen mentioned, he couldn't start the construction till he got a certain number of power purchase agreements. My Board of Selectmen was convinced, and the tape, and the meeting minutes are clear, that there were off-ramps with our power purchase agreement, because the concern for a lot of people and a lot of board neighbors came to these meetings in Duxbury was that they were going to be harmed. And Duxbury's Board of Selectmen assured everyone that the way the power purchase agreement would be written up would be that as long as this facility adhered to all state, local rules, regulations, laws, etc. Well, for 2 years, you've had an open nuisance declaration against this facility, meaning they violated the state nuisance law. And I have a whole, I know I've sent this to the Board of Health, whether each individual member has seen it or not, but Mike Blanchard of the Milton Board of Health did a whole syllabus on nuisance control and abatement, all about the law and all about your obligations to protect public health. So I guess one comment I want to make is, it seems to me that Mr. Golden, his motion to rescind the nuisance is based on language that is in direct conflict with the state nuisance law. The nuisance law is to protect public health, not to protect a company that is being viewed as in good faith, talking to you about the fact that they're going to eliminate the nuisance conditions they're creating. So what is the good faith effort? Why is a nuisance declaration being rescinded for what is being viewed as a good faith effort, when in fact the nuisance conditions, as documented by the neighbors, still exist? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And
I
that's
think that
why.
is a decision for the Board of Health, so we can take another vote.
And the other thing I will say, just as a general, keep an open mind here. In Kingston, they had many meetings. They had DEP personnel, 3, 4, 5 of them at a time at a meeting, talking, answering questions. That's never happened here. I don't know whether the DEP is reluctant to come talk to you and educate you on the noise regulation, or whether you're not interested in hearing from them. I'm not privy to that, but one question I would have for you, Mr. Barry, is all of these things that you said about your conversation with whoever these people, your contact. Is any of this in writing, or are these just phone conversations where you've taken notes and the notes?
These were phone conversations because the individuals involved with RWE
Mhm.
felt that they did not want to participate in an open public meeting in terms of having discussions about possible mitigation measures.
Okay,
And it's illegal to record those conversations without consent.
yeah, that's unfortunate, because of course, you know, if you were to say that, I know Karen said to the neighbors need to, you know, just file a lawsuit on their own, which we all know finances are the reasons a lot of people are unable to, as Karen testified, unable to pursue legal action, which is why they're so hopeful that the Board of Health, who has the power and the obligation, it's not just, you know, this Newton Board of Health syllabus talks about the duties and responsibilities of the Board of Health. So the duties and responsibilities are going unfulfilled here. That is what's happening. And what I wanted to say about the Kingston Board of Health is their town council came to a Board of Health meeting, and the board members were asking town council for advice. And he said to them, I represent the Board of Selectmen. I represent the town of Kingston. I cannot advise you because my duties are in direct conflict with Board of Health duties. And so the Board of Health was made to ask the Board of Selectmen to approve a Board of Health have their own lawyer that was schooled in public nuisance law. Because town council, as I have your town council's letter from your town attorney, which is riddled with a few errors, in my opinion, is because he is interfering. His letter to you folks is interfering with your Board of Health duties. And that's exactly what the town council for Kingston advised the Kingston Board of Health members, that I cannot advise you because I have a conflict of interest. I represent the town of Kingston, the Board of Selectmen. And the Board of Selectmen, as Mr. Golden said many meetings ago, we need to get rid of this problem, and the problem are the neighbors. The problem should be for you folks as the Board of Health, should be the nuisance conditions, which Barry, you could clarify for me. You said there's no evidence of health problems except for annoyance, but annoyance is a medical term. Annoyance is a medical term, and these people are suffering, and that was why the Kingston Board of Health, what they did was they declared a nuisance and they ordered abatement, and they decided on what the abatement was gonna be. Hours at night curtailment. The Situate Board of Selectmen, same thing. 365 days a year, they shut down their turbine voluntarily. Now, there's a few differences between all the towns with, you know, Kingston's was, they leased town land. So there are little differences, but I think
Joanne, I'm gonna ask you.
that, yeah,
I'm gonna-
that's all I want to say, but I'm very disappointed because you have police powers to protect public health, and all your meetings, I'm so proud of you with your most recent, the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant, Dylan Fernandez. I personally feel Holtec needs to be held to account by the state and locally for environmental and health negligence at their power plant. They've often and too often have operated very opaquely, and in my opinion, have been very secretive about their process. I think that is wrong. I think you shouldn't take whistleblowers and language buried deep in reports, thinking the acoustic report for this future generation wind project, which has never been fully fleshed out, and understand what exactly is happening in our backyard here, and the people of Plymouth deserve to know exactly, in a very transparent process, how this plant is going to be decommissioned. Now, I may disagree on the decommissioning, but Dylan Fernandez's words at that January 4th public hearing on Pilgrim could very easily apply to this situation here. So thank you for giving me a chance to speak. But
You're welcome. You're certainly
my
entitled
interest
to
is
that.
protecting public health as
Yeah.
is your responsibility.
Our
Thank you.
responsibility is to protect public health to whatever extent we are able to do so,
Well, you have
and we did try.
You have the power, as you
Yeah.
pointed out, last thing I'll say. You raised the issue of the Barnstable Superior Court judge when the town of Bourne went and looked for order of enforcement to halt the construction. And the judge, one paragraph, and I've sent this to the Plymouth Board of Health many moons ago. The order of decision by that judge was, if and when they're constructed and if and when they're a nuisance, you are welcome back in my courtroom. And that judgment should be very instructive to the Plymouth Board of Health, because you've had an open nuisance for 2 years, and you should have known by that judgment that you also, given your nuisance declaration, could have gone to court on behalf of these neighbors and protected their health. And that's what would have been just so great to see.
Thank you. So I'm
Yeah.
going to end the discussion at this point and ask
Briefly.
if anyone has, I don't want to drag this up too much longer, so
Very brief.
go ahead.
My statement is directed towards you, Barry. You have worked endlessly over the last several years to provide some mitigation for these folks. I want to make sure that on the record, you're commended for the hard work that you've put in. It's a shame that the residents in the last meeting weren't open to anything except for complete and total shutdown, because you have done so much to try to get them. I mean, you got an international corporation to forfeit profit to try to help these folks, and you did that without any true leverage. So I think we need to show our appreciation for you and what you did to try to help these folks out.
The department agrees too.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I did all that I thought I could.
You did. Thanks so much.
Given that, would anyone on the board care to make any motion about this matter?
Don't know that a motion is necessary.
Well,
Only if they want to change it.
if anybody wants to change that, conditional rescission motion that we made on June 28th, you could make a motion to do so, and if it's seconded, we will discuss and vote. Do I hear a motion to reverse the previously approved motion that we made on June 28th? Hearing none, we will then close this matter, and we will move on to the next agenda item, which, Amy and Lorenzo, you have anything to add about Board of Health goals and updates?
Nothing to add, unless Lorenzo has anything.
No, I don't.
Okay, in that case, we've already had quite a lot of public comment. Is there anyone online that wishes to make other public comments?
No, there's nobody.
Nobody? Okay, and then director's report, please.
Okay, just a couple of things tonight. One, I just want to remind folks about the community meetings on the opioid remediation. We had our first one today at here at the town hall in the Great Hall. And there were definitely some people very interested in hearing about the program. We had some families that were there that talked about their own personal experiences dealing with opioids and the impact to their family. So I just want to remind folks that the second meeting is tomorrow at the Plymouth Public Library from 4 to 5:30. That is in person only. Today's had a Zoom option, but tomorrow is in person only. So just want to remind folks if they want to hear about the opioid remediation plan from Health and Human Services, they'll have another opportunity tomorrow between 4 and 5:30. Then I'm gonna ask the board to think about something. My next thing is the rules and regulations regarding horses and stables. I'm reviewing our rules and regulations periodically. And Section 4 of the rules and regulations governing horses and stables says that the Board of Health will place one public notice in a local newspaper. I don't think that is probably viable any longer or practical, because, so I'm thinking that if we don't even have to discuss it tonight, I'm just asking for folks to think about it. Either we remove Section 4 altogether, or we change it to say that there has to be some sort of notice, whether it's social media, or we post it on our website and then the town's website or something. But I think requiring the public notice in a local newspaper has to leave.
Is there anything in here about sending it to a butters?
Yes,
There is, okay.
yeah.
Amy has her hand raised.
Yeah.
Right, Amy?
Karen, well, do you guys have any I mean, I definitely feel like the website, and I know that there's like town alerts. Is there some way that we can have language that allows this to be modified based on technology? Because I don't know how things are going to be sent out in 5 years.
Oh, David.
I can add something too, because I talked to the people at Plymouth Independent about this. It's something.
Mhm.
You go first. You're
Okay. They feel very disadvantaged, because any of the notices that are required by state regulation and law have to be put into a newspaper that is a published printed newspaper. So an online paper does not qualify according to state regulations and law. There is, I was told, because I've made several different calls and I said, this is just incredible. This is like so out of date, I can't even express it. And I was told that there is a bill before the state legislature to actually alter that requirement so that notices such as these could be published in an electronic form with an online sort of publication. Whether or not that happens with the state legislature is probably, if it happens, it'll take a long time.
Right, and this is your.
But I don't know if we have the authority to change it ourselves.
You do, because this is your rule of regulation. This is not a
Yeah.
bylaw. This is the board's rule and regulation regarding
So it's
horses.
not like a hearing or
Correct.
a public forum, which we have to advertise.
Correct.
And I think the only thing in the like mass general law, and I could be wrong about this, has to do like for public hearings has to do around planning and zoning. Like
That's
I don't even,
correct.
yeah, okay, good. So
Mhm.
so I agree with Karen.
Mhm.
We can definitely do this.
Okay, David.
Yeah, I mean, if we are to keep it, what I would suggest we do, and obviously this is not for subject to vote tonight, but what I would say is that instead of adding in websites or, all I would say is that would be, the Board of Health shall cause public notice to be made.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
And that would allow it for
Mhm.
whatever the changing technology, because websites might not exist in 10 years.
Yeah.
Email,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, we'll just put that out in the universe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what it will be. If you leave it broad enough to say, public notice shall
Okay.
be made.
And again, and I'll tootle around with that and then bring it back to.
okay. It sounded very legalistic and accurate.
Yeah. And then just a little update on the public health department. We have now processed over 500 renewals. Shout out to Ms. Dana Burke for all of her extraordinary efforts in getting that done. I'll be presenting our budget for the department to advisory and finance on Friday, January 26th. And that's it for today.
Okay. David.
I have a question, Karen.
Mhm.
Did our, short-term rental, new regulations, did those go into effect as of January 1st? Have we had anyone come in for that?
We've got one or two
Okay, like as a negative, or like have they come in to do their paperwork?
to do that
Do the paperwork.
Yeah, and we have everything, like they can submit it
Yeah.
online.
Okay,
It's a
Mhm.
very quick and easy process.
we need to do, I'm sure you are doing this, but is there anything that needs to be done in advance of the coming? I mean, spring is almost upon us and
Yeah.
summer will be there soon
I
after.
think we do, because we have not had, like, people that have already registered, I think they're done,
Yeah.
they don't realize there's a
Mm.
renewal fee.
Mhm.
We are probably gonna have to have some sort of an alert system or like
Or
a
mailing.
mailing or something. Um,
Yeah, we'll do a mailing to the folks that we know of.
yeah, right
Yeah.
now, our main focus is getting all of our January renewals
Yeah.
processed, and with the online permitting system, it's very, it's tedious right now because we're
Mhm.
still in the setup phase.
Right.
Next year it's gonna be wonderful, because it'll just be a renewal. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's on the radar, just
Yeah.
far away.
I'm not trying to make more work for you folks either. I just, when you said
It's okay,
renewals, it
David.
reminded me that.
It's a,
Related question, are there
Yeah.
still people who registered with the state system that have not registered with the Plymouth system?
I don't have the updated list I'll have to request that from Lynn. And we always take a look at that anyway and send out notices to those that are on the state list, but not on our list.
Because for those of you who weren't involved in that, that was probably one of the major achievements of the Board of Health in the past 4 years.
And one thing that we noticed with the state list, like when we actually just looked at the number, we were like, oh my goodness, the state has more numbers than we do. But then when I actually kind of looked at that in more detail. If you had an Airbnb, but you did it like 3 different places, yeah, it counted for the state as 3 different things. But for our purposes, it counts as one. So our numbers were much closer aligned with the state than we first originally thought.
That's reassuring.
Yeah, because under further review, we were like, wait a minute, why does this keep coming up?
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Karen on her report? So rather than myself making announcements, I'm gonna ask Dr. Reed
Yes,
to read some announcements to everyone.
Oh,
there is an upcoming Narcan information session,
yeah.
which is occurring at Plymouth North High School in the lecture hall on March 26th at 2:15 p.m. And this is to give information about the use of Narcan and also more about opioid use and the disorders and the public health response to those things, which they are making plans to have opioid rescue kits and that sort of thing available. So I thought the public should know about that, and if you're interested, the high school, folks are gonna go there, they're gonna be invited, but certainly anybody can be invited.
Yeah, they have a rescue kit. I don't know where else in the school, but they have one up by the gym.
They do.
It's funny, I
Good.
saw it today, it's funny you brought it up. I was like, when did
Yeah.
that get in here?
Yeah, well, there are gonna be other places too, and so this will be good information,
Yeah,
and
that's
not just
great.
in the high school, it's gonna be around, in places around town.
Do they have they given you guys like any kind of instruction or anything on how to use Narcan or?
I think that's what
Nothing.
this information.
I think it's pretty new, the box is like very shiny still.
Yeah. Yeah. And the second announcement I have is to save the date, April 27th, for the Health and Safety Fair, which is at Plymouth North High School. And it's on the 27th from 10 to 1.
Yeah, we'll have a booth there.
And it's very well attended
Mhm.
in past years at
Yeah.
least. A lot of people, mostly parents with school-age kids.
Mhm.
So the other major thing I wanted to bring up, which involves the high school students, is some years ago, the Board of Health found out that Hingham High School was doing a composting program in the cafeteria. And we got all excited about it and went to Chris Campbell, the superintendent, and to the head nurse at the school system, and said, well, you know, this is saving them a lot of money in terms of trash pickup. And it's generating, you know, no methane because the stuff is not going into the landfills. And in addition to that, you get compost that you can then utilize, you know, for growing vegetables. It seems to be all a good thing. Will Plymouth consider it? And the superintendent was enthusiastic, and then COVID erupted.
Mhm.
And that sort of disappeared, but because Dr. Reed goes to the wellness meeting, she talked to, I guess, Patrick Van Cott about that.
And Patrick is the food manager for the high schools. And are you at North or South?
South.
That's South. Then you should be aware of the new recycling program that they've started in the cafeteria.
It's news to me, as far as I
You
knew.
eat in the cafeteria?
They don't recycle anywhere in the high school, as far as I know.
Oh, okay, well, maybe it's at North, but I thought it was at South.
Well, we
They
have someone,
started
do we have
recycling.
the person from North with us?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
think they just started something with the marketing program. It's called something green. I'll look for it, but and that has something to do with recycling, but I haven't heard too much about it. I think that's fairly new too.
Well, in any event, we're gonna have Patrick Glanfort, we're gonna invite him to come and talk to us. He couldn't be available today, he had another meeting. But he's going to come and talk to us about it. It must be happening somewhere because he said in the first week, they recycled everything but one bag of trash.
Wow, that's great. Wow.
And
From the
that's for
school.
breakfast, they serve breakfast and they serve lunch. So it's gonna be amazing.
Tremendous
And
amount.
That's huge.
he got a grant to do this, and he's going to roll it out then to the other schools as he learns more about it. So
That's great.
they're just starting it now.
That'd be great to have him come in.
Yeah,
And David, if you would bring that up with the Chamber of Commerce, because as I mentioned to you previously, at least in Hingham, the businesses were really involved in that.
Yeah.
Providing, you know, pizzas and various other things that students that achieve certain goals in the recycling and composting program could get.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that the Chamber of Commerce and its members would be very enthusiastic over trying to provide support for something like that.
Yeah, absolutely, I'm happy to do that.
So, you know, if they're willing to come whenever we can get Patrick Van Cott here, maybe Amy Naples
Yeah,
could come in at the same time that Patrick is here.
yeah, just let me know when he's gonna be here and I can contact
Okay.
Amy.
And then obviously, this is something which is very worthwhile, I think, and which directly involves, for the moment, the high school students, or maybe just one of the high school students.
the other thing he mentioned was, this is sort of in the back of his mind, and he'll talk more about it, but they want to start hydroponic gardens.
That's so cool.
And he's gotten some grant money to buy that too. And he put it in the one that he has, he put in the teacher's lounge so that the teachers could watch the plants grow.
Oh, come on, now, give the students access at least, yeah.
Protecting them too.
He's protecting them to start before he does more. So there's more to come.
Yeah. So this is something I would hope the students would be actively involved in. Dr. Reed said for the moment, it does not involve the middle or the intermediate school, but things like this, when it's successful and saves money and provides, environmental good things to happen, usually grows. And so we will do as a Board of Health and, with the help of the students from the two high schools and the intermediate middle school, we will do whatever we can in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce to make this a huge success for the town.
That'd be great. South has the whole like professional kitchen too, so I imagine they have a ton of ways they could do.
Yeah, I mean, it is worrisome when you start to think about the fact that there is so much food waste that goes into landfills. And none of it has to. It can be composted and it can be turned into something useful. And if it goes to the landfills, it releases massive amounts of methane gas, which is even worse than carbon dioxide for global warming. So previews of positive coming attractions, I guess. Any other new or old business anyone would like to bring up?
Lorenzo has his hand raised.
Lorenzo?
Yeah, this is a question probably for the department. So earlier in the meeting, we had made a motion and voted on amending the June 28th minutes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
Just to clarify the vote that was recorded in the minutes. In parentheses.
What was that? Sorry, Barry.
It was to clarify the motion on the first motion, the vote on the first motion, which was actually recorded incorrectly. And it
Correct.
implied that it had in fact passed when in fact it did not.
Right, the way it read, it made it seem like it, right?
Is that what your question was about?
No, my file, I was looking at the June 28th meeting minutes and kind of the minutes that were posted on this website before and after that were approved. So when will the amended minutes be posted?
Just as soon as the correction is made.
We have to pay them.
Yeah, and then we have to vote on the amended.
Come back before you.
Yeah, Dana will make the changes, we'll bring them back as an agenda item. We'll review them. And then you'll vote on the minutes and then we'll post them.
Okay.
Okay,
And then
anything else?
my last question was, there's the vote through roll call. If someone wanted to know who voted, like 4 for in the affirmative and 1 for the negative, they could find that out if they wanted to.
Correct.
Yeah, it's actually listed
Okay.
when if it's unanimous, it'll just say vote through roll call 5/0 unanimous.
Right.
If it's like a 4-1, it will give the list of who was yay, who was nay.
Okay, because it doesn't show that now. I thought that, thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Also,
Okay.
that information, of course, is available on the recorded version of our meetings. So anybody can check what's there at the recorded video version of the meeting with what's recorded in the minutes if they wish to.
Right. Okay,
Anything
thank you.
else? Okay, David?
I just as a point of clarification, I don't believe that we do have to bring the minutes back because my motion was to amend the minutes.
Oh, sorry,
Right, so the group doesn't have to vote on the amended minutes? No,
We did that.
yeah, okay,
That's what my motion was, so.
yeah.
right, so we're done.
I think
We'll
it's,
post them.
yeah, I think it's fine to post.
Okay.
I can do that, Dana. I'll take care of it.
Anything else the students would like to bring up? I guess Ace didn't join us today, but Addison or
Is there?
Ace is here.
Mhm.
Ace or
Is
Sophia?
this here?
Yes, what's there?
I thought one of them
Ace
could
is
come.
there. There.
Was that Addison that couldn't come today?
No, Addison's
So they're
here.
all
Everybody's here.
here. Okay, so
Game's over.
anything else, any of the students that are, you know, at our Board of Health meeting you'd like to bring up that we could consider?
Handshaking.
You're hearing none?
But thank you for being here.
I will ask that at all of our Board of Health meetings.
Yes.
So if you think of anything, please be sure to let us know. And you can bring it up in new or old business, or you can just email it to myself. And if it requires an agenda item, then it'll go on the agenda. Okay. That being done, would someone like to make the proverbial motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. I have to call the roll because some are remote. Lorenzo, yes or no?
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Dr. Reed,
Yes.
myself, yes. This meeting is adjourned.